Welcome to another edition of the Ultimate Weigh-In Show. I'm your host, Manpreet, aka MMA Lock of the Night, and your boy on Twitter at MMALOT. And this week we're going over UFC Vegas 44, headlined by Rob Font and Jose Aldo in a pivotal bantamweight scrap that should really tell us a lot about Rob Font and especially where Jose Aldo is at, especially after a career best performance against Pedro Munoz back in August. A great co-main event between two vicious strikers, between Rafael Fiziev and Brad Riddell. Very much looking forward to that fight, but I can't wait to break these fight downs with the guests I'm about to bring on for you guys as well. Again, trying to keep the quality of guests as best as I can. And I feel like I reeled in a big one this week, and I can't wait to break it down with him. So without further of ado, we got the Factory X headmaster over there, Mr. Marc Montoya. Marc, how's it going, brother?
Good, guys. How are you? It's a pleasure being on. Thanks for having me on. I'm actually sitting here in eastern Colorado, getting ready to do a little pheasant hunting with my son and a good friend and his son. So taking a little time out here, man, and busting this out with you. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks again for having me on.
Absolutely. And I greatly appreciate you making this a priority to come on and break down these fights for us. I know you love your pheasant hunting and all that. We were discussing a little bit before we jumped on live here. Do you have a goal this weekend? Like, are you trying to nab a couple? Like, what's normally the goal when you come into a pheasant hunting weekend?
Well, the goal is to have a good experience. I mean, I grew up doing this. I grew up hunting and fly fishing. Obviously, I'm a fourth generation Coloradan, so I have deep roots here in Colorado and here in the West. So, just make some memories with my son. I mean, that's fun. I was thinking about it as I was driving out here. It's about a 2-hour drive out here, and I was thinking about it. I was like, it's close to 40 weeks that I go on the road for fighting for the UFC and my athletes, and obviously the entertainment of the fans and everybody. So when I get a chance to break away, I'm just trying to come out here and make some memories with my son and go harvest some pheasant that we're going to eat. We ate some pheasant on Thanksgiving. We ate some elk on Thanksgiving. And so, just go have fun doing that stuff. And this is a side that a lot of people don't know about me. I mean, I have a real big countryside to me. I grew up in the inner city of Denver, so I grew up in a tough neighborhood, but my families both come from cattle ranching and coal mining families, and I'm Native American. My father's like 38% Native American, so kind of just runs in the blood. So, but yeah, just make some memories and harvest some of the best food you can ever have. You ever eaten pheasant?
I haven't had pheasant myself. I think the most like game-ish type of meat I've had is deer. Again, I'm a rookie with this thing, Marc. I'm living in Toronto here. We don't got elk and deer running around like you guys. But I will say this:
Hey.
my wife and her family, or sorry, my in-laws actually live out in Saskatchewan, and I'm sure you're aware that Mr. Brock Lesnar moved up there just so he can go hunting and get away for everybody. But her uncle actually is a pretty big hunter and trapper himself. Has his own YouTube channel, is doing very well, and he's always invited me. He's like, "Hey, let's go hunting. Let's go hunting." I've never even shot a gun in my life, Marc. So I'm hoping that I can eventually go out there one summer and enjoy it as well. It looks fun. I mean, it's not just about catching it, right? It's about the experiences you're making that you're going with as well. And it's great that you're obviously bringing your son there. We do have a short amount of time here, so I don't want to waste too much more of your time. Before we jump into the breakdowns, I just have one question to ask you, because top three fighters for me, bar none, Mr. Brandon Royval. That guy is such a treat to watch, no matter who he's going up against into the cage. The very wild style. I like to call him like the flyweight Ferguson, but just because he's just so wild at times, and that chaos usually allows him to thrive in those spots where other fighters are not able to. When you're coaching a fighter like that, how do you best extract his best skills, which in my opinion is creating chaos? What goes into training a guy like Brandon Royval, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, I've been training Brandon since he was 15, so I've had the luxury of training him since he started, and he and I actually come from the same neighborhood. So it's interesting because he has those tough roots, and he's a huge Diaz brother fan, and so you can see that a little bit in him. The Ferguson comparison is fair as well. But his chaos, like you said, does create a lot of opportunity. And that's how he's actually gotten to where he's at. I mean, he goes in there, he loves having fun. And and he loves to fight, and so, and he's such a skilled, he's I think the first real, in his age bracket, he's the first real like mixed martial artist coming up, where those kids in their teens were training, just they wanted to be MMA fighters, and before that it was specialists, and so he's a true mixed martial artist, and he's good everywhere. But to train him, he's a coach. He's hardworking, one of the hardest working. He's a great leader, hardest working kids we have. He's been in the system for a long time, in our system, and so he's easy to train because he and I have grown up together, and so. But one of the things we have to consistently preach with him is, let's slow this down a little bit. Let's slow this down a little bit. And I don't want to take away who he is. Believe me, I want him to always be who he is, because that's what makes him special. But I think we can make him even better if you should have seen him when he was younger. You think he's chaotic now. He's he's crazy.
I've seen some of those regional fights. He's a madman.
Yeah. And so maturity is something that's helping him, but I never want to take away who he is. I don't want to ever change the style of the guy that I'm training. I just want to enhance it and help them, with the tools that they're growing, and the mental side of the game and their IQ. So, that's all we're doing with him, is just continuing to grow him that way.
I was already a fan of him from his LFA days and all that, but what really made me a fan was that Tim Elliott performance, where he was so down on himself even after getting a win after a tough fight like that. And I thought you did a great job in terms of like trying to reassure him that, dude, like, you just had a great fight, like, enjoy this. It's your first UFC win over a legit veteran and Tim Elliott as well. So just to see that type of mentality from him, where he's like, I wish I did better even though I got the win, and obviously I think that's going to take him pretty far. I know he stumbled back in August against Pantoja, but I think he should be able to bounce back here in January when he goes up against Rogerio Bontorin. But yeah, I'm happy to be able to pick your mind about Royval briefly there. But we're here for another reason, Mark. We're here to break down the card that's going down tomorrow night. We got Jose Aldo and Rob Font in the main event, but we got 13 other fights before that. So let's start off at the bottom of the card here. We got bantamweights going up against each other between Luis Smolka and Vince Morales. In terms of odds, we currently got minus 150-ish for Luis Smolka, plus 130 the return on Vince Morales. I'm a big Luis Smolka fan, especially since coming back to the UFC. He really has this knack for putting on the pressure of his opponents. Like, he just rips to the body a lot and then waits for the hands to come down, and then he starts to go upstairs. Or even with his jiu-jitsu, probably one of the best jiu-jitsu game, like I'd say top 7 to top 10 jiu-jitsu games in that 135-pound division, because he's so smothering, likes to get on top, and really likes to transition to those dominant positions, whether it's ground and pound or a rear naked choke. He's always looking for a finish. Vince Morales, on the other hand, seems to be a decent boxer with good footwork, but I feel as though the wins that he's had inside the UFC, his opponents have allowed him to kind of get comfortable in that boxing range and get into his groove and his flow. I don't think Luis Smolka is going to allow him to do that. I think Smolka is going to move forward. He is a little bit slow at times, so I think that Morales will be able to ding him, but I do think that Smolka has enough durability to be able to withstand that, and then I think he should be able to break him with his pressure, eventually take him down, find that rear naked choke, and get him out of there. Personally, I got a hefty wager here on Luis Smolka, so I'm hoping that Mr. Marc Montoya agrees with me, but please do not sugarcoat it for me. How do you see this fight going down?
Well, Morales, I know because Chris Gutierrez fought him.
Yes.
Who's obviously one of my fighters, and obviously we attacked the legs a lot in that fight, knowing that he has a boxing style. I could see Smolka absolutely going a little bit to that strategy. That's not Smolka's wheelhouse like it is Chris's wheelhouse. Smolka's wheelhouse is to get on top and run his jiu-jitsu series and eventually submit him. And so that's got to be the key to victory for Smolka. The thing with Morales is he's young and he does have good hands, and sometimes Smolka has a tendency to stand in front of you and get hit. And so will Smolka the way Smolka wins is he's got to go transition right into his ground game and work some cage work, take away the hands that Morales has, and then go and obviously insert his dominance on the ground. And so Smolka's got to go there. I could see Morales clipping him a little bit, though. Smolka has shown a little bit to have when he can't get clipped, and so he's hittable as well. So I think Smolka can absolutely go in there. and insert his dominance. I think it's going to be a close fight, though. If Smolka doesn't do it right away, I think you see Vince pull out the victory.
Yeah, I have a little bit more concern if I feel like Morales had more knockout power, but it's been a while since he's produced a knockout. It doesn't seem like he has that zest or that pop. But then again, the striking defense of Louis Smolka leaves a little bit to be desired at times. So very much looking forward to seeing how that one plays out. All right, let's move on to the next fight. We got Claudio Puelles going up against Gruetzemacher. In terms of odds, we're currently looking at a pick 'em here, -110 on both sides. You guys have some history with Chris Gruetzemacher. Obviously, Alexander Hernandez, if I'm not mistaken, that was his first fight with you as well, goes out there and starts his Chris Gruetzemacher pretty quickly. And then Gruetzemacher bounces back with a beautiful performance against Rafa Garcia, really showcasing his durability early in that fight, where a lot of people thought that Garcia would be able to knock him out, just similar to what Hernandez was able to. However, the knockout didn't transpire, and Gruetzemacher was able to take over for the rest of the fight. Puelles, they pretty much have the same type of style, and I believe they want to get their opponents to the ground and really rough them up, but I believe that Gruetzemacher is a little bit more durable and gritty, just like his nickname, right? Like the guy wants to get in your face and really makes it a tough, dirty fight, and just pushes the pace. But I think that Puelles will be able to land takedowns here, and even in the striking realm, I think he should be serviceable enough to deal with the pressure that's going to be coming his way. I'm thinking either Puelles sub, or I think he outgrinds Gruetzemacher here by just beating him to the movements. We saw great movements from him against Mr. Jordan Levitt last time around, giving Levitt his first ever pro MMA loss. And I think a lot of people were counting him out because I think he was coming off a 3-year layoff or something like that. But now that he's gotten his feet wet again, training down there at Sanford MMA under the watchful eye of Henry Hoop and that great gym down there, I think he should be able to go out there and pull this one over Gruetzemacher. Please let me know what the game plan was for you guys in the Hernandez camp when you're going up against Gruetzemacher, and then ultimately, how do you see this fight playing out?
Well, I think if Claudio is going to pull the victory out, he has to own the center of the cage. If you let Gruetzemacher come forward and because Gruetzemacher is absolutely hittable. Obviously, we saw that when Alex fought him, and you've seen that in his other fights. So, Claudio has to own the center of the cage. He has to come out, back Gruetzemacher up, and he also has to go out and insert his dominance there. But Gruetzemacher can get hurt, but still be in a fight and still win a fight when he's hurt. And so the question is you, like you alluded to, you already said, hey, Claudio is coming off a big layoff. But
before his last fight, sorry, I believe his last fight was in July. Yes.
But he's come back and he fought that last fight after the layoff, and he was and so I think that is a benefit to Claudio for sure, because it's not just a layoff coming off a layoff fight against a tough, durable guy like Gruetzemacher. Gruetzemacher is I think going to be a little slower there. He has a tendency to show a lot of what he does, and when we fought him. That's one of the keys to our success was Alex had to own the center. He had to impose his will quickly on him, and then we knew that he was hittable. So, we didn't want to overthrow stuff. We wanted to make sure that he was being fast and accurate with efficiency, and that's what he did. And then obviously Alex is one of the best in the world. When he senses danger, he goes and finishes. Obviously, he just did that again in his last fight, and so. I believe the Sanford camp and Claudio will of course take notes from that fight and from his other fights, and I think the odds right now are that Gruetzemacher is a slight favorite, isn't he?
I'm seeing actually a little bit of money coming in on Puelles. I'm even seeing him as high as -140 on certain spots. So it seems like late money here coming on the Peruvian Puelles.
Okay, so I would. It's a pick'em fight for sure. It's hard to because there still is that layoff thing. I know he just had a fight. I get it, but you have to get a few in there to prove that you're back. Does that make sense? And so
yeah,
it's a pick'em fight in my head. I don't. I'm not really putting my money on that fight. I'm watching that fight and just going, okay.
If I was putting a gun to your head, what side are you picking here?
Gun to my head, I'd pick Claudio.
Okay. I like it. I like it. All right, let's keep this train moving along. We got Alonzo Menifield going up against William Knight in terms of odds. Late money coming in on Alonzo Menifield now. He's up to about minus 155, plus 135 the return on William Knight. Both these guys have been scheduled to fight each other numerous times. But my opinions have sort of shifted. I was originally picking Knight. Then we saw how the next two fights for both of these guys went. We obviously saw William Knight get pummeled by Da Un Jung for 3 rounds, but he was able to follow that up on the same night that you were actually in Vegas as well, where he knocked out Fabio Charant with the beautiful counter left hook as he was moving backwards. Beautiful power from him there. Alonzo Menifield, on the other hand, pulls off a Von Preux choke against Fabio Charant earlier this year, and then follows that up with a beautiful performance against Ed Herman, where he just tears up that lead leg and then did some good work in that third round to get him out of there for his first ever decision victory, which is, I think, a great thing for fighters that, guys like Alonzo Menifield and William Knight come into the UFC pretty much just squashing guys on the regional scene because of their athleticism and their power. But once you get to the UFC, it gets a lot tougher to get away with things like that. And both these guys have been able to figure that out the hard way, with obviously taking some L's in the UFC to this point. I do like Menifield here, though. I like this calm, cool approach from him. I'm a big fan of Sayif Saud. And one thing that I really picked up in that fight against Ed Herman was when they did the corner cam thing, the one thing that he was saying is like, everything light, Alonzo, everything light, because he wanted to see him go the full 50 minutes. And I think he did a really good job in terms of conserving his energy, throwing out a couple leg kicks, throwing out a couple combinations so that he can go the full 15 minutes if it was required. And it was required that night. William Knight, I was just not impressed with his inability to get back to his feet against Da Un Jung. It seemed like he just kept succumbing to the same trip takeover from the clinch position and just could not work back to his feet. I think Zoe, not much of a wrestler, but I feel like a mastermind like Sayif Saud should be able to devise a plan that he can exploit that part of William Knight's game if he needs to. But I do like Zoe here, not overconfident in it. When you see these guys, a lot of people think, okay, let's bet the under, let's bet the fight doesn't go to decision, somebody's going to get knocked out. Personally, I think these guys are going to have some respect for each other, and we see this actually go over the 1.5 round mark, which currently sits at minus 165. I think that's a decent enough bet here, but I do think that it's going to be Menifield that ends up getting his hand raised by decision in this fight. What do you think about this matchup between two powerhouses at light heavyweight?
Yeah, so I have some personal experience with William Knight. Cody Brundage fought him in the Contender Series. Cody Brundage went up a weight class to do that at 205. William Knight is one hell of a specimen especially for his height, right? And so is Menifield.
Fire hydrant.
So is Menifield. You're going to see a lot of beef in that cage when that happens. Those guys are both specimens for sure. I think. When Cody fought him in the Contender Series, we took him down fairly easy and actually had his back and had him flattened out, working to finish. Obviously, it didn't end well for us because we didn't win that fight after the fact. But the thing
that was
a
weird stand-up. Sorry, Mark. That was a weird stand-up in my opinion.
It was the worst stand-up I've seen as a coach. Herb Dean and I have not been the same since then. And
wow.
Because
interesting.
He was telling my fighter to advance position, and I'm yelling at Herb saying that's the best position we can be in MMA. So I just anyway, that stand-up is actually what carried on for us to lose the fight, and of course I'm still bitter about it. So
I would be too. Thankfully, Brundage still made it to the UFC one way or another, but still,
he did.
Yeah,
he did. But Knight is talented and he's got power. So is Menifield, and he's got power. The thing with all that mass that they both carry is their longevity to sustain the cardio if in fact the fight goes past a round. And so Menifield did show in his last fight against Herman that from taking instruction from Sayif and his team there to, hey, let's keep things light and let's work and conserve, be efficient essentially. And he did that, and he showed that he could do that. But he did that against Ed Herman, who is obviously toward the end of his career, is not anywhere near as explosive as Knight. And doesn't have the same youth that Knight has either. And so one thing I know about Knight is he can counter wrestle really well. He much better than people actually I don't think have seen or know, because I studied him well because Brundage fought him. He can counter wrestle well. If he counter wrestles like he has shown he can do in the past, I think he beats Menifield. And so Menifield, though, is going to bring a flurry of heat in that, and like he always does, even if he's being efficient, the guy's still powerful. And so I think he's going to flurry a little bit. Now, when they flurry, who knows? Throw all the money up in the air, because it's whoever catches each other first. And so I could see where Menifield is more technical and a little more well-rounded in and why the odds are favoring him a little bit. But I'll tell you what, if Knight counter wrestles him and does what he's good at there, I think he could win that fight fairly easily if he'll do that. Now, will he do that? That's the question. And so I think the money right now the odds are sitting right now on the Menifield, and I would agree with that. But I'll tell you, if you wanted to pick a fight that is closer than I think the odds are showing right now, Knight has a good chance to win that fight.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think Knight was a slight favorite when they were first matched up, and then they both obviously had 2 fights, and now the money is coming in on Menifield, considering the data that we have now compared to before. But I am looking forward to it. I want nothing to do with it money-wise. Like you said, if they trade in the fire, somebody's going to go down. It just depends on who hits first. Exactly. Just throw the chips in the air and see what happens.
Get the lighter. Exactly. Get the lighter and just start burning the money. Yeah.
Exactly. All right, let's move on to the next fight here. We got Mallory Martin going up against Cheyenne Vlismas, formerly Cheyenne Bays. So just for people to remember who exactly she is. In terms of odds, we're looking at minus 190-ish for Vlismas and plus 160 for Mallory Martin. For me, it's a pass of a fight. Bays, when she is having success, she uses her grappling pretty effectively. She was able to get that knockout last time around against Gloria DePaula. The fight before that is where a lot of people start to drop off on her, because she was a minus 300 favorite against Montserrat Ruiz, and that was that famous fight where she got stuck in that scarf hold position and could not get out for 15 minutes, and everybody just said, this girl's no good anymore. Why should we bet on her? But she was able to bounce back effectively, like I said, in her next fight and get a knockout that time around. Mallory Martin, on the other hand, she did get submitted by Verna Jandiroba a couple fights ago, but then last time around, she did get submitted by Poliana Viena via armbar. Both of these girls, I believe their bread and butter is the grappling and the wrestling. I believe Martin has the more credentials when it comes to the wrestling side, and Vlismas is more of an MMA wrestler, if anything. I do lean on the Vlismas side, on the Martin side at underdog odds, because I believe she could have the advantage when they get into those wrestling scenarios. My concern, though, is we just haven't seen much of Vlismas off her back, other than that Montserrat Ruiz fight, which I'm going to put a little bit of an asterisk beside, because, Mark, you've seen thousands of fights in your life. How many fights have you seen where somebody's just able to get them in that old school schoolyard headlock and just not get them out of it, right? That's an asterisk of a performance. And then, not seeing what she looks like off her back is just too much of a question mark for me to trust a girl like Mallory Martin, who, again, she's been submitted from guard in the past, and that's just not a good look for me if I want to invest my money on somebody. I'm going with the Martin side just because she's the underdog, but this is a very close fight. Is there much you can add in terms of this fight? Are you familiar with these women? And ultimately, if you are, who do you think ends up getting the nod?
No, I'm familiar with both of them. Mallory's actually from Colorado, or trains here in Colorado. So she trains up the street, obviously not at Factory X, but she trains at Elevation. So I watched her come up from the ranks, from on the regional scene, local regional scene. So I know Mallory really well because she's right here in my backyard. Super talented and is gritty. That's one thing I love about her, is that she when she's the hammer, she's mean, bro. And so that's the thing, is she can be really mean. Cheyenne can too. She's talented, and I think the question is the ground neutralized, or does one person have a little bit of an advantage over the other there? Mallory has shown that she can be the hammer on top. She's also shown, like you said, to be submitted from the ground as well. And so, but I've watched Martin and watched her come up. I didn't watch Cheyenne as nowhere near as close on her come up like I have Mallory, because Mallory's from my neck of the woods here. But I would say, even though Mallory's the underdog, I would say that I would go actually on that side for this fight.
I like it. Maybe some slight Colorado bias there, but I'll take it, Mark. It is what it is. You pretty much admitted that anyway, so it's all good. I do actually have a question in regards to that. Like you said, she trains over there at Team Elevation. I always find it interesting when we have two big gyms in the same city. What is that relationship like with Team Elevation? Is it like a rivalry? Is it a friendly competition type of thing? Like, what is your relationship with those guys? And because I remember the last time I was actually at the event August 21st when you guys had Vince Michelle going up against Austin Hubbard, and I believe that was a Factory X versus Team Elevation fight over there. What's that relationship like between these gyms?
It's a healthy rivalry, and I have a ton of respect for the coaching staff there and their team. They've done a phenomenal job, and but competition is great for anything, for any business, for fighting. I mean, we wouldn't be fighting if we didn't have competition, and so and we're close to each other, so it's not that like geographically we're close to each other, and so and we fight each other a lot on the regional scene, local scene, and we have a great relationship in the sense of a mutual respect and that real recognizes real type thing. They're a great gym, we're a great gym, and it elevates us. It's actually one of the reasons why I think you see such great fighters come out of Colorado, because you have two really powerhouse gyms going at it on the local regional scene and weeding out the kids that don't get to the highest level past that regional scene. And so that's why you get to see some of these phenomenal fighters like Sanhagen and Roy Vol and some of those type kids. So nothing but respect for those guys. And honestly, it's not really a biased a pick. I think it's I just know Martin a little better, but I've watched Cheyenne fight. She's freaking good. I just think if Mallory brings out her grit, like I know she can, she could neutralize that fight and take that underdog, nomer that she's got on her name right now and go win that fight. So.
I like it. All right, let's keep this moving along. Next up, we got Jake Matthews going up against Jeremiah Wells. In terms of odds, we're currently looking at minus 165 for Jake Matthews, plus 145 the return on Jeremiah Wells. Now, this is going to be back-to-back fights for Jake Matthews going up against those guys over there in Philly. I believe it's Daniel Gracie's Hensel gym that he has over there. Very tough fight for Jake Matthews last time around against Sean Brady, who's really turning out to be a great prospect. I don't even know if we can call him a prospect anymore, especially with that big win that he just got over a couple weeks ago against Michael Chiesa. Jeremiah Wells fights similar to Sean Brady. I just don't know if he's as effective. Good takedowns, great power on the feet. Obviously, we saw that in his UFC debut against Warley Alves, where he was able to starch him in that second round. Questionable cardio, but luckily for him, I feel like Jake Matthews has some questionable cardio as well when it gets late into a fight. Both guys, similar game plans as well, right? They want to drag their opponents to the ground and really grind them out from on top. And that's where we see, Jake Matthews start to huff and puff a little bit later in his fights, where you see guys like Diego Sanchez and other guys having success in that third round because Jake is just working so hard to kind of hold him down and get those takedowns in those first two rounds. Again, similar can be said about Jeremiah Wells here. I believe this is a 50-50 fight. Personally, I took an underdog shot here on Jeremiah Wells. I do think he'll be able to secure takedowns. I've seen him against what's the last fight? John Manley a couple fights ago when Jeremiah Wells fought him and found himself in precarious positions late in the fight, but still managed to explode out of these positions and get back to his feet and then pretty much get the fight back onto his terms. I just don't know if Jake Matthews has that same type of ability to get back to his feet. There's times where we've seen him grind it out in the past. So I kind of trust Jeremiah Wells' side a little bit more. One prop that I actually found pretty interesting: if Jeremiah Wells doesn't starch him early in this fight, which, it's tough to do that against a guy like Jake Matthews. You need to really grind on him and then finish him in the third round, similar to how Anthony Rocco Martin was able to. And then obviously Wells' teammate Sean Brady was able to get him out of there in that third round. If Wells doesn't start him in the first round, I could see this going the full 50 minutes. I could see him give the judges a nod as well. And they're currently holding that price at plus 600 for Jeremiah Wells to win this fight via decision. I think that's a great line. Personally, again, don't need to get too greedy, especially when you're getting underdog money on the side here like you are getting with Jeremiah. And personally, I pulled the trigger around plus 145. What do you think about this fight? Two grapplers, one guy making a second walk to the UFC or to the cage, and Jake Matthews seems like he's been in the UFC forever. Like his kid's still only 27 or 28 years old. What do you think about this matchup?
I like this matchup. I think it's a fun fight. I think the ground game gives Potentially can be neutralized, and you see these guys strike a little bit. And Wells has some power, but Jake's tough, and so it's like that makes for a fun fight, especially when they get in the grappling exchanges. I think you see some good grappling in this fight. You also have Wells' teammate who, like you said, just had a huge victory. Brady did just recently, and his team is prepared for this fight before, right? So and MMA math never adds up correctly that way. So it's not like, well, you trained with Brady and Brady beat him, so you can beat him. It never adds up that way. But the preparation has been put in for that opponent. That's a big thing. And I'm sure they learned some stuff, even though they came out with a victory the first time. They learned some stuff about that fight that they can take into this one, in addition to what they already game planned for. And so because of those two things, I respect Jake a lot, but I think Wells I would give Wells the nod on this. And I think you could put some money on that for sure.
I like it. I'm glad that you brought up that, these guys were already preparing for it before, because we had that something similar with you guys recently as well, with Jonathan Martinez taking on that short notice spot against Zviad Lazishvili a couple weeks ago. You guys had Josh Huber fight Zviad on the regional scene. Did that kind of go into the reasoning as to why you guys accepted that short notice fight against Zviad? Is you guys are already prepared for this guy, but you might have, no disrespect to Josh at all, but you might have a better soldier to send out there, and Jonathan Martinez to pull off a game plan that Josh probably was not able to. What can you tell me about that fight with Martinez and Zviad?
Yeah, so when Huber fought him a couple years, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, maybe 2 years ago, something like that.
Yep.
I pulled up my notes from that fight, and when they pitched that to Jonathan, and so I already had notes on him. And when I rewatched his fighting from that date to current, there wasn't a ton of change.
Not at all.
And I was like, okay, there's not a ton of change here. And so I went through my notes, and then we had a different fighter fighting him stylistically. Jonathan and Huber are not the same, obviously.
Yeah.
And so we, because of the styles, we were able to neutralize a lot of that. And I know how well Jonathan does against wrestlers. And he went out there and capitalized big time against a really tough opponent, actually. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't he undefeated?
Yes, he was undefeated.
Yeah.
And I think that's why a lot of people are kind of high on him. Like, the Georgians have been killing it inside the UFC as of late, right? So when they have this short notice guy come in undefeated, I believe the betting line was actually in Zviad's favor as well. A lot of people love him in that spot. And I couldn't see it personally. I'm like, Jonathan, this is a great fight for Jonathan. And luckily, I was able to play out that way as well. So credit to you guys and the coaching staff for being able to get that done. All right, Mark, let's move on to the next fight. We got veteran Brian Barberena taking on short notice Darian Weeks. Darian Weeks, a Missouri native. I believe he's been some time over there with your boy James Krause a couple times, but he doesn't actually fight out of that gym. On the flip side, Brian Barberena, obviously a veteran coming off a loss to Glory MMA fighter Jason Witt, was not able to really get much going on those first 2 rounds, dealing with the takedowns of Jason Witt. But in that 3rd round, man, he made it really, really close. Personally, I thought it was a 10-9, so luckily Jason Witt actually did get his hand raised that night. Even though he was close to getting finished, at least he pulled off some takedowns and showed some offensive capabilities in that 3rd round to negate that 10-8. So good work from Jason Witt to be able to survive there and get that W. But Brian Barberena, like he showed, doesn't go down without a fight, man. The guy is very tough, very gritty, pretty much good all around. Hard hitter at times. He's been able to put some guys out, and I think he could do that here against Darian Weeks. Now, my issue is, how is he going to deal with those takedowns, right? Darian Weeks, really good wrestler, should be able to get the fight to the ground. I personally wasn't impressed with Weeks' ability to keep fights on the ground, and now he's taken a massive step up in competition as well. I know he has a bit of a lengthy amateur career, but when you start fighting guys in the deep end of the pool of the UFC, even the middle of the pool here with Brian Barberena, massive step up in competition. So personally, I also think Weeks has a weak cardio game as well, if you want to take that pun as well. But I do think that Brian should be able to survive that first round and then really make it difficult for Weeks to get his game going after that. I don't think he's the most comfortable in the striking realm. Weeks, that is. He has a ton of power. He mainly has like a teep up the middle and some big overhands, but that's really about it, in my opinion. Pretty limited on the feet. He gets his best work done on the ground. I think Barberena will be ready for that, and I think after that, he should be able to start to take over with the striking, takedown defense, and possibly even get a third round finish. I like me those third round props, especially when I see a cardio deficiency in a fighter's game, and I think it's roughly around plus 1,200 now if you take a little bit of a sprinkle on Barberena to win this fight in round 3. That's how I'm going. What can you tell me about Weeks, and ultimately, who do you think wins this fight?
I would say what you just broke down is perfect. I think yeah, I mean, I think Barberena is super durable. He's tough. Obviously, he's coming off a loss to Witt, and Witt was the underdog in that fight for sure.
Yeah, big underdog, big underdog.
Big underdog. And I remember talking to Krause about that fight leading up to it, and everybody knows what Brian's capable of. Weeks is talented. I mean, the kid's talented for sure. He's it's not a walkover fight at all, but I think the competition difference could play a factor there. I also think that Barberena is probably still shocked that he lost his last fight, and pissed. You know, he comes off. I don't know him well at all, but he comes off to me like he didn't forget about that, and he wants to go make a statement about that. And sometimes we catch guys on that transition. It's actually a good thing because you can capitalize on emotion. But I think he's good at harnessing his emotion, but he's also good at burning a fire inside that you can't see, and he wants to go make a statement. And I think it's a statement fight for him. And because of his demeanor and the skill and talent he has, I think the Barberena money is the right one and the right pick in that fight for that reason. And it's not that Weeks is a walkover at all. He's a tough, talented kid, but I think just knowing what just happened to him in his last fight, Brian, that is, I think he comes out and gives a statement fight.
I love it. Interestingly enough, when the odds makers dropped the odds for this fight, he was a minus 200 favorite at the opener. Heavy money coming in on Darian Weeks, and it's pretty much a pick 'em at this point in time. I wouldn't be surprised if Darian Weeks actually goes off as the favorite once the fight kicks off. So a lot of people reading into that Jason Witt fight, I think they might be burning themselves with that recency bias, though, because Brian Barberena is a very tough out, and I think that Darian Weeks is possibly in for a vet lesson tomorrow night from Mr. Brian Barberena. All right, let's move on to the next fight here. We got Zhalgas Zhumagulov going up against Manel Kape. In terms of odds, heavy chalk here on the Manel Kape side of things. He's minus 260, and the return on Zhalgas Zhumagulov plus 220. I'm very interested in this fight, right? There's a lot of hype on Manel Kape coming into the UFC. Obviously, he did a lot of good things over there in Rizin, a couple of good wins over some notable guys, and then he's pretty much fallen flat in his UFC career so far. Lost his his initial fight in the UFC against Alexandre Pantoja, where it just seemed like he was, feeling himself a little bit too much in the moment, dancing a little bit, really playing to the lack of crowd that was in the Apex that night, and he ends up coming up on the losing end. Then in his next fight, loses a very close fight to Matthias Nicolau, and then luckily finally gets his first win inside the UFC in a fight that I didn't think he was doing the greatest in, honestly, against O'Day Osborne. Osborne was having tremendous success before he ran into that flying knee attempt from Manel Kape, and Kape finally gets his first victory. Zhalgas Zhumagulov, on the other hand, he's coming over off of a big win over Jerome Rivera, where he was able to start him in that first round and get that finish. I believe it was a guillotine choke that they ended up getting him with, but he was running through some pretty tough times of his own, losing a couple decisions here and there. Zhalgas, champion over there in some in one of the Russian organizations, had a couple good wins. Ali Bagotinov, I believe he beat Tagir Ulanbekov as well. Point fighter, right? It's hilarious to see, like, he starts off his career 6-0, all 6 finishes, and then since then he's only managed to knock off to get 2 wins via finish. I'm sure you see this on the regional scene, and then ultimately when guys get to the UFC as well, it's a lot easier to get finishes on the regional scene. But then once you start jumping in with the Sharks, it's a lot tougher for them to get finishes. And I think that's exactly what happened with Zhalgas here. He's more of a point fighter now, likes his boxing, sticks and move. That's really about it. But I think he's going to have some trouble here with the unorthodox movement of Manel Kape. I think Kape will be too fast for him. I think he'll be too powerful as well. I think he'll land the more devastating blows that the judges will see. The bet that I actually have in this fight is the over 2.5. Zhalgas is a decision machine as of late. I mean, outside of that Jerome Rivera fight, but I think Kape has a very good chin. I think Zhalgas has a very good chin. I think both guys are pretty crafty on the ground and should be able to stay out of position or submissions. And then I think we'll see Manel just slowly outpoint him from the outside. I'm not too keen on betting Manel here at minus 260, which is why I took the over 2.5 in case we get a robbery situation or Zalgas gets the nod because he's able to match the output of Manel Kape as well. I'm taking Kape, but my main money is on the over 2.5 in this fight and seeing it go to the judges' scorecards. How do you see this one going down between two flyweights?
Well, I think you just highlighted the probably when you're talking money, you just highlighted the key factor in this, and that's the 2.5 rounds. That I think that is probably your best money wager for sure for this fight. Stylistically, it's interesting because Zalgas was a powerhouse coming up, like you said, but he, in the sense of finishes, the point fighting has been interesting to me because you can see that he's got power, and so he can go out there and he can finish you. So I don't know what's changed there. That's kind of the thing that raises my eyebrow a little bit. I'm like, well, why did he stop doing that? And it might be because of competition. Could be that. It could be that maybe he was a little too wild when he was fighting, and his coaches were trying to calm him down a little bit and say, hey, you actually have more skills. You're more well-rounded than just doing that. And so he's lost a little bit of his identity trying to grow and expand and learn. And maybe it circles back to him and he's able to put it all together. But in that transition right now, I think Kape catches him in a transition with what he's trying to do stylistically. And I absolutely think he's super well-rounded, that being Kape, and he has the ability to put you out, but he also can go win a 3-round fight for sure. And so, but again, that 2.5 round money, that's a smart bet. But also, I could see Kape taking the victory for sure in that.
I like it. All right, let's move on to our prelim headliner now. We got a pair of middleweights going up against each other. We got Maki Pitolo going up against Duško Todorovic. In terms of odds, we're currently looking at minus 160 for Todorovic, plus 140 the return on Maki Pitolo. Both guys coming off the Dana White Contender Series with a lot of hype around them in their debuts. They're at chalk money. A lot of people are betting them and parlaying them, but they've been falling short in a couple of their fights. Both guys, I believe, Duško Todorovic is 1-2 now in the UFC, and on the flip side for Maki Pitolo, he's 1-4 inside the UFC. Most recently coming off that loss to fellow Glory member Julian Marquez. Very crazy fight, especially that being the return fight for Julian Marquez after such a long layoff and a severe injury and surgeries that he had to go through. I thought Pitolo was 50 seconds away from getting his hand raised by that decision, and then Julian Marquez just puts that anaconda choke on him and gets him out of there. So good win for him there. But in this fight, Duško likes to play the matador, man. He likes to stay on the outside, kind of pick his opponents from range, blitz forward at times as well. He has a decent clinch game as well, but it's been up against mediocre level of competition. That's where I think that Maki Pitolo should be able to thrive. I think he'll be able to wrangle and corral Duško Todorovic up against the cage, maybe let off some of those coconut bombs that he has, and maybe even just grind him up against the cage, maybe grab a couple takedowns as well. But I think his aggressiveness and tenacity in terms of moving forward will be the difference maker in this fight. As long as he doesn't get clubbed and subbed similar to that Julian Marquez fight, or as long as he doesn't get clubbed late here, I think that this is a great spot for him as an underdog in this spot. And I love my guy, Eric Nixick over there at Extreme Couture. I know he's doing great work with Maki. Very much looking forward to this fight. I got Maki by decision, which I currently think is sitting around plus 450, if I'm not mistaken, or plus 250. I think that's a decent bet as well. What's your thoughts on this matchup? And if you can share anything in terms of whether you discussed with Kraus in regards to the Marquez and Pitolo fight in the lead up to that, please, it would be great if you could share anything about that.
Yeah, so Pitolo is super talented. He can box, boy, and he's got some bombs. I mean, his nickname is perfect for him, right? And so, I'll tell you, I've been it's hurt my heart watching Pitolo lose some of these fights because the kid's super talented. I watch him and I'm like, and I think that's the reason why he's still around, is because everyone, including the matchmakers at the UFC and Dana and all those people, they see the potential there. And, he's had some tough losses and he's had a few in a row and that kind of thing. And he's won one, then he's lost a few, and he keeps doing that. But his style is to just get in there and get after it. And the question that I have for Pitolo is, what does his transformation look like on the ground? And we all know what he looks like on the feet, and he's really good at what he's doing. Where he's running into some stuff has been on the ground, and so I know that he comes from Eric over there, and they train him, and they do a great job with everyone that they're working with over there. And I guarantee that's got to be something that they really looked at and said, okay, this is something we need to address. And I think if they've addressed some of that stuff there, that there's no fear that Pitolo can continue to have no fear striking, because he's shoring up some of his deficiencies on the ground. If he's not shoring up some of those deficiencies on the ground, then we got a problem here, because there is going to be fear if the and you got to remember, these guys don't get tired a lot of times because they didn't work hard and train hard for the fight. They get tired because their nervous system raises.
Yeah.
And your nervous system raises, and you're like, oh shit, I feel tired, because your body's going, whoa, I'm in panic mode here. And panic mode is created when you're not prepared sometimes. And so the ground piece, it's not that Maki's not prepared and that he looks tired sometimes when he hits the ground. And I think it's just that he needs some work there. And so what does it look like there? That's my question, is what kind of work has been done there? Because if they shored some of that up, it's going to give him the confidence. His nervous system is going to raise as much. He's going to be able to get back to his feet and throw the bombs that he throws. And he absolutely could win that fight. But, Dushko is, like you said, that dude will just hit, be in and be out, be in and be out, be in and be out. And I could see that driving Maki crazy, and him kind of chasing instead of cutting off and working his boxing game. And so that's a tough fight, that one right there. It's tough to call. I know there's a lot of money on, the odds are in favor of Dushko, I believe. And so with that said, I'm always so high on Maki. Like I love watching the kid fight. He's such a skilled kid. I would have to say, because of the uncertainty of what's going on in the ground. I mean, Dushko's got to go to the ground a little bit, right? I mean,
I know it's really not his style, yeah.
But I mean, he's got to work some of that a little bit, right? I mean, I would say it's a total error if there's at least no cage wrestling, if there's no, like, let's not just throw bombs here and try to stick and run. I mean, maybe I'm not saying that can't work, but I think the opportunity to go in there and blend a little bit, blend a little bit, would secure a win for sure. And I think maybe that's why he's got the odds right now in his favor. And that maybe the odds are also saying, hey, they don't think Maki can catch him because he's going to be so in and out on him in the sense of his style. Maybe that's another reason. But I think it's hard for me to pick against Maki. I got to go with him.
Yeah, you're getting underdog money on him as well, so it's not that bad of a bet if you think he has that dog in him to go out there and get that victory. All right, we're getting to the main card here, and I do want to remind you guys, the 100 live viewers that we currently have, make sure you guys hit that like, hit that subscribe below, and then show my guy Marc some love as well. I know he said he doesn't seem as a hunter or anything like that, but I promise, as soon as you guys see his IG, you guys will know exactly what's up. I do have the link to his Instagram in the description below, so make sure you guys click that and shoot my man a follow, because he's a very fun follow as well. And obviously, go over there and follow his gym as well, Factory X Muay Thai. You guys can follow on Instagram as well. All right, main card kicking off here. We got Alex Morono going up against Mickey Gall. In terms of odds, we're looking at heavy chalk here on the Alex Morono side. He's sitting at -230, +210 the return here on Mickey Gall. Now, Alex Morono, another safe Saud guy. I'm a big Fortis guy myself, so I love when we get to see him go out there and coach these guys. But I think that Morono is going to remind Mickey Gall what it's like to go in there with a shark. And it's hilarious that his nickname is the Great White, because I truly believe he fights like a shark. And every time I try to break down Alex Morono fights, I always stumble and try to figure out, like, I know he's going to win this fight, but how does he win this fight? Because he's a BJJ black belt that he never uses, it seems, right? He never takes his opponents to the ground. He just likes to go out there and throw not bombs, but like he just likes to throw leather and really get into a fight. We saw him put up, I believe, 160 significant strikes against Reese McKee, which is absolutely crazy, the pace that they're fighting at in that spot. But he has some power in his hands as well. He's knocked out a couple guys in this fight against Mickey Gall. I think he just needs to be worried, like maybe the first 3-4 minutes when Mickey really has some pop on his shots, as we saw when he went up against Jordan Williams last time around. It didn't seem like Williams was himself at all after that first shot landed and got dropped, and then we saw Mickey Gall was able to take advantage of that after. But Gall, what really got him to the show was obviously this whole CM Punk fiasco that we got a couple years ago, but his BJJ game, right? That was his bread and butter. He'd be able to get guys down, get the backs, and strangle them. But as he starts taking steps on the competition, it's not that easy for him anymore. Like, you got guys like Mike Perry and Randy Brown pretty much controlling him from on top for the majority of a fight, and he's not really able to do much off of his back. It seems like he also has a bit of a cardio issue. On the Alex Morono side, though, this guy fights from minute 1 to minute 15. Very durable outside of that Chaos Williams loss that he took in February of 2020. But since then, he's put together a decent enough streak, other than the loss that he had to Anthony Pettis. But I think I just think he's the spot here, man. I feel pretty confident in Alex Morono here. I think as long as he can evade that early shot from Mickey Gall, he should be able to kind of drown him with his pace and his pressure. And I think he could actually even get him out of there, similar to what Diego Sanchez was able to do a couple fights ago as well. So I do like Alex Morono here. Alex inside the distance as well. And even the under 2.5 to possibly cover Mickey Gall, getting a club and sub situation or anything like that. Because he has some pop in his shots, as we obviously saw. But I'd be surprised if he puts Alex Morono on his butt and has the same amount of his success as he did in his last fight. So hopefully Mickey Gall doesn't come in with too much confidence in his hands now because of what he was able to do last time around. But I think either way, he's kind of screwed. I think this is a Morono fight from beginning to end. He's probably one of my more confident spots here. What's your take on this fight? And in your opinion, what went wrong in that Jordan Williams fight? And what can you tell us about Mickey Gall as well?
Well, give me the odds on this fight. I don't, for some reason, the site I'm looking on, I don't see it.
Yeah, it's minus 230 for Alex Morono, plus 190-ish for Mickey Gall. So he's pretty steep underdog there.
Well, I think the line is a little bit disrespectful. I mean, on Gall's side, but that doesn't mean that I don't see Morono winning this fight. But I do think that's a little disrespectful there. Because here's the thing, like you alluded to, he was brought in for the CM Punk thing. That's not his fault. And the kid's only 7-3, by the way. Like, his record, he's only 7. Yeah. He's only got 10 fights. I think Morono's got about 30, right? Pro fights. Yeah. It's close. And so, and I'll tell you what, when Jordan Williams fought him, he was impressive. I mean, Gall did a good job. He clipped Jordan early, and then obviously took advantage of that and subbed us, right? And so, in game planning for Gall, he is good on the ground, and obviously that's where he shines. But he's obviously done. I trained Matt Brown when he fought Diego Sanchez, and Matt and I still have a good relationship. Obviously, Matt moved to Ohio and what have you, but I know Matt has trained Gall and done some work with him on his feet. And they worked in and out of the clinch, and those are some things that Matty obviously shines really well with. And when we fought him recently, Gall looked a lot more confident on his feet than he ever has looked, and so that's something that I could see in the cage. I was like, wow, I could see this in the cage, and so there's some growth there, even though. Gall is only 7-3, and he's a super nice kid, always been super respectful. That's what I'm saying. That line seems disrespectful. It doesn't mean that Morono can't win. I think if you're betting, you're probably betting absolutely on Morono. He's got more talent, or excuse me, he's got more experience, of course, than Gall. And I feel like you probably see Alex winning a decision because Gall has a tendency to get tired in the latter rounds, and that's probably where you see Alex win that fight if Gall doesn't do something early. And so so I understand that that he is a favorite in that fight. Again, I just think that that's a little bit disrespectful, at least where the line's sitting.
In terms of the game plan for Williams in that fight, what was kind of the think in that fight? Did you guys want to keep it standing? Did you guys want to kind of test the jiu-jitsu? What was the game plan there?
We wanted a blend, so we felt like Jordan had absolutely has good power in his hands and can put anybody out. I mean, he did that with Gregory. Gregory's come on. You've seen Gregory, and that was a weight class above where Jordan's fighting at, by the way, at 85 instead of 70. And we wanted Jordan's a really good wrestler, and so he hasn't shown that in his last couple of fights, but that kid can wrestle his butt off. And he obviously has power in his hands, and we wanted him to blend, and we never got to that point. I mean, we got clipped early, and there was no blending, and so but we absolutely wanted to see him blend on him. I could see Morono doing that, and I could see that being a great game plan to Gall, by the way, is to make him do the up and down game, because the up and down game is the hardest thing in MMA cardiovascular wise. And if Gall has a tendency to get a little tired and flat on his feet toward, the middle of the second round into the third round, that's a good game plan. And I actually would probably expect that game plan going into this fight, is that they're going to mix that up a little bit and work the up and down, because Morono has shown that if he does that, or wherever the fight goes, he's going to fight for that entire time and keep bringing it. And not that Gall won't, it's just he's kind of shown that he gets a little flat on his feet when he starts to get tired. So that I absolutely could see Alex going to a victory by doing that, if in fact it gets to that duration. But I see Gall though being a tough out for that first round and a half.
I absolutely agree with that analysis as well. I will say this about Jordan: a very good showing against Ian Gary before that ultimate punch that put him down. But that was I think he was surpassing a lot of people's expectations, especially considering the odds going into that fight. Very good output from him and ability to really put it on Ian Gary there. But just a bad luck of the draw in terms of getting caught there at the end of that first round. All right, let's move on to the next fight here. We got Brendan Allen going up against Chris Curtis. In terms of odds, obviously heavy chalk here on Brendan Allen at minus 310, plus 275 is the return on Chris Curtis here. I love Brendan Allen in this spot, and I truly believe that he's deserving of that minus 300 price tag. Now, I'm a big Chris Curtis fan. How can you not be 30 plus fights before finally making it to the UFC? Pretty damn good track record as well in the PFL. His only losses were to the PFL champions, Magomed Karamov twice, and then obviously that Ray Cooper fight. But he was obviously able to pull off a big upset victory in his UFC debut against Phil Hawes. He got touched up for about 3.5 minutes before finally finding that button on Phil Hawes and getting him out of there. I just think he's making a mistake taking another fight at 185 pounds when he's a 170 pounder truly, because his bread and butter, in my opinion, is his boxing game. For him to be successful, he needs to get those hands going. But with the size disadvantage he's going to be having here against Brendan Allen, not to mention the switch stance scenario that we have here, we saw Brendan Allen use that perfectly in his last fight against Punahele Soriano, where he was just ripping body kicks to Puna there and really made him pay. I think we could see a similar game plan here from Brendan Allen in terms of staying away from Chris Curtis and trying to stay away from that power and just rip kicks. If it does get a little bit too close for comfort, I do trust Brendan Allen to be able to secure takedowns here, and that's really his bread and butter. His Brazilian jiu-jitsu, as we've seen in the past, is very nasty, and he has a good top pressure that he should be able to implement here on Chris Curtis. So historically speaking, Brendan Allen, very durable outside of that Sean Strickland fight. But in my opinion, Sean Strickland is on another level with his striking compared to what we get from Chris Curtis. And that should be enough here for Brendan Allen to, I think he grinds him out over 15 minutes, keeps him at range when he's able to, or drags this fight to the ground when he gets the chance, and he goes the full 15 minutes here, because Chris Curtis is a very tough veteran, fought the who's who on the regional scene. But I think the Cinderella story, unfortunately, ends tomorrow night, and he should go back down to welterweight, where he'll definitely find more success. What are your thoughts on this fight between a 185 pounder and a 170 pounder here in Chris Curtis?
Well, I think wasn't Allen supposed to fight Tavares?
Yeah, he was supposed to fight Tavares. He was actually supposed to fight somebody else as well, Roman Dolidze as well. Okay. But both those guys pulled out, and in steps Chris Curtis on short notice.
So I think with Brendan Allen, I mean, let's not forget he's 5-1 in the UFC. I mean, I looked at his record just now, and he's 5-1 in the UFC. That's hard to do.
Only loss
So
against Sean Strickland, right? Like,
Strickland,
again,
yeah,
respectable loss as
and
well.
so the kid obviously is super talented. I watched him come up through the LFA ranks. He's pretty well rounded, and I think there's absolutely going to be a size advantage there. Curtis obviously packs a little bit of a punch. He showed in his last fight. Haas unfortunately got defensively out of position there, and that's what happened to him. But kudos to Curtis. I mean, especially in your debut against Haas. Haas is not an easy out. That is a fight that's like, hey man, welcome to the UFC. Can you earn your stripes? And so, kudos to him to pull that out, and his durability, and then also his poise to go get that. And so, but even with that said, I think. I mean, again, Allen's 5-1 in the UFC, and he's faced some tough competition to get to 5-1. I absolutely see Allen winning that fight, and I think you can put your money on that for sure.
I like it. We're up against the clock here, so we'll try to get to these next 4 fights as quickly as possible so you can get back to your pheasant hunting and father-son experience that you have going on this weekend, which I'm sure you're very excited about. So next up, we actually have veterans here. Clay Guida going up against Leonardo Santos. In terms of odds, we're looking at -180 for Leo Santos and +160 to return on Clay Guida. Leonardo Santos actually turns 42 years old in February, and Clay Guida hits 40 in about 4 days. So it's an early birthday gift, hopefully, if he's able to walk away with both of his checks this weekend. Unfortunately, I just don't see it happening, man. I'm a big Clay Guida fan, but I think that Leonardo Santos has him beat pretty much everywhere here. Guida, obviously, when he's at his best, he's able to land takedowns and just really put a pace and a pressure on you. But I'd be very surprised if he looks to take this super high-level BJJ black belt down in Leo Santos. And then on the feet, he can jump around and do all he wants, but I think that he's going to start to get picked apart by the kicks of Leo Santos and even the long range striking that he's been able to put some guys out with, Kevin Lee and obviously Stevie Ray most notably. You guys have a little bit of a tie. You guys had Grant Dawson go out there. Obviously, Grant Dawson of Glory MMA, but I'm sure, again, you and James are buddy. I'm sure you guys help each other in terms of breaking those fights down. I thought Leo Santos gave him the toughest fight to date. Grant Dawson really had to work for that win, and luckily enough, he was able to get that buzzer beater knockout. I saw the scorecards they released for that. They actually did have two judges had Grant Dawson up 2-0, but I thought there was a case that you can make for Leo Santos in terms of stuffing those takedowns and getting his own damage off as well. Great takedown defense as well. 89% takedown defense here from Leo Santos. So I'll be surprised if Guida lands takedowns consistently here. And then on the feet, I think Santos will just pretty much have him beat. I got Santos inside the distance as well. I think we could see a possible club and sub situation, something that Clay Guida has succumbed to in the past. And yeah, I love me some Leo Santos in this fight. I don't like betting, no ageism here or anything like that. I don't normally like betting guys that are 40 years and older. But I feel like when you have two 40-year-olds here, Leo Santos is still showing that he's sipping on the fountain of youth with some of the performance he's been having as of late. I think he has Clay Guida covered here personally. What are your thoughts on this matchup?
Yeah, so with Kraus and I, obviously I trained Kraus for a long time, and what an amazing young man he is, and he's becoming an amazing coach. That's something that I'm proud of too, because Kraus is part of my lineage, and I'm super proud of what he's done. Obviously, when Grant Dawson fought Santos, Kraus and I talked about that. We were scheduled to fight Santos. Alex Hernandez actually was scheduled to fight Santos, and so that's he pulled out, and then we got a short notice fight. Obviously,
Mike Breeden.
Correct, and so, but the Santos, I think it's just too much for Guida. I think what you just hit on is that Santos. I mean, Grant Dawson is a crazy good wrestler. The kid is talented, especially when it comes to grappling. And we saw the troubles he was having with Santos. If Grant Dawson doesn't finish him on the ground there, Dawson probably loses that fight. And so, and that's at what you were just saying at 40 plus years old, right? And so he's super talented. Now he's going, and he was just going against Grant Dawson, who's a young little stud coming up, and so now you're kind of like even here, And then when you take skill set, of course you can't ever count Clay out of a fight because the guy's a savage. So, but I think there's just way too much. Isn't one of the odds on a sub for Santos being like 500?
I am super glad that you brought that up, Mark, because that is definitely one of the props that I'm going to be hitting for this. It was plus 500 early in the week. Right now, it's sitting at plus 320, plus 450, depending on what your bookie is. I think even not being that greedy, even just taking the inside the distance at plus 205 is a decent spot as well, because there could just be, he trusts his power so much nowadays that he might just look for that ground and pound rather than trying to grab a neck in this spot.
I think the biggest thing is I think you see Santos potentially drop Guida and close in, and that's potentially where that sub happens, and that money right now is sitting. You said what was it, 320 plus 320?
Yeah, plus 320. Yeah,
I could see at plus 320 that being a nice little bet there. Obviously, it's high for a reason, because that's tough to hurt Clay. That's one of the things I could see him doing a lot of damage on the ground though, Santos. And so I give Santos a nod for sure in that, but you might want to look into that sub odds for sure.
I like that as well. One reason I kind of go for the inside the distance rather than a specific prop here, Tyron Woodley against Darren Till. I had Tyron Woodley by knockout, and he goes out there and pulls off a freaking dart stroke. Who expected Tyron Woodley to pull off a dart stroke in that fight? So, that's why I'm like, you know what, let's not get too greedy. Let's go with the inside the distance, no matter which form it comes from. All right, let's move on to the next fight here. We got Jimmy Crute going up against Jamal Hill. In terms of odds, we got minus 160. Minus 165 for Jimmy Crute, plus 145 for Jamal Hill. Pretty binary fight to break down here. Jamal Hill wants to keep this fight on the feet. He uses his range pretty well. I still feel he's a little green at times. Some of his technique is a little bit poor, but it's been working out for him. His size, his athleticism, his explosiveness at times is kind of bailing him out of bad positions. And then on the flip side, you got Jimmy Crute, very nasty on the ground if he's able to get the fight there. And I do believe he should be able to get the fight there. I'm not 100% sold on his wrestling, which is why I'm ultimately not betting Jimmy Crute here, but I do think he should be able to get this fight to the ground. You guys obviously very familiar with Jimmy Crute, with Anthony Smith obviously being his last fights. What can you tell about this matchup, and who do you think ends up winning? Personally, Crute by submission round one is what I'm saying. How do you got this one?
You're saying Crute by submission round one?
Yes, sir.
Well, I think Hill is a talent. Obviously, I watch this division pretty closely because I watch all divisions closely, but we, with Anthony Smith being one of my fighters, I've watched Hill, and of course we fought Crute recently, and so Hill's loss to Craig was largely because he kind of invited himself into Craig's world, right? And I think people underestimate Crute's ground game. I don't. Studying him, watching him fight, and then studying him to fight him, Anthony Smith fight him. I was actually, until I did my research, like the full research I have to do as a coach, I think I underestimated his ground game a little bit. And so, but I didn't obviously going into the fight. So but the kid's powerful. He's young. He's hungry. I don't believe he's fought since he fought Anthony, right?
No,
am I right about that?
That's correct.
So he's hungry. He wanted to make a statement on us. I mean, he wanted to go out there and make a statement on Anthony, and the kid is talented. He's a hammer. Jamal's a little bit of a wild card. Not because he's not talented. He's crazy talented. He's only lost one fight as a pro, and so he's crazy talented. But I think because of that inexperience a little bit, and him being a little bit of a wild card, which is one of the reasons why he's got an L right now, because he kind of invited himself into the Lion's Den per se with Craig, and I just see. I feel like Crute wins this fight. I think he's more well-rounded. He's got power. He's really good on the ground. Unless Jamal catches him with something weird, I don't see Crute losing. But the one thing I would say about this fight that I don't have the answer to this is, if Crute hasn't trained with somebody like Hill preparing for this fight, I could see why Jamal could take this fight and win. Because here's the thing. You're going to go in there, you're going to see this long, lanky, unorthodox style, and it's going to take 2.5 rounds to figure it out. And unless you do something in that last half of that round to finish, you're going to lose a decision because you haven't put the pieces together in the training room. Now, I'm not saying that that's what's happened. I'm just saying if you're depending solely on my growth only, and I'm only worried about me for this fight, and I lost the Anthony Smith fight, and I'm just preparing my skills, and you didn't see that unorthodox style in training, it could be a long night for Crute if that's what happened. And you could see Hill frustrate the heck out of him and go on to win a unanimous decision. But I'm assuming that they've put guys in front of him like that. He's done all that. And if my assumption's right, and knowing the skill set that Crute has, I would put my money on Crute.
I like it. I want to quickly get your brief thoughts on this because this is a huge thing about this fight in particular. The big cage versus the small cage. Who does that benefit, the grappler or the striker?
You're saying the big cage?
Well, they're going to be fighting in the small cage here.
Oh, yeah.
Who does the small cage actually benefit in this spot?
Oh, the grappler for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you guys put a lot of stock in like the size of the cage when you guys are breaking down a fight and all that? Like, how much does that play into your game plan?
Well, it plays a lot into it, especially depending on the style of the fighter we have going into, the smaller, bigger cage. We're able to use a lot more footwork, or the angles are bigger when you're trying to take guys down. The gaps are smaller or wider. There's a lot that goes into that. They all look the same on TV, and especially when you have the outside walking panels outside the cages, they look huge. But when you see them and you get in there, especially with the bigger guys like these 205ers in those small cages, they take 1.5 steps, they're to the center. And I know that because we've gone and worked through that. At Factory X, we have the same size cage as the cage in the Apex. And so I know from being in the Apex cage and then being in our cage that we train in daily, that for the bigger guys, from about the 70 pounders and up, it's about 1.5 step, and you're standing up from center to the sponsors on the cage. And so that matters. There's a lot that matters there for sure.
I'm sure that mattered a lot when you guys had Dustin Jacoby go up against Iwan Kutalaba and just trying to keep them them off of you. But I
would have preferred the bigger cage in that fight for sure.
I'm sure.
And we won that fight, by the way.
I do agree with you, but again, it is what it is. This is the crazy game that we play. This is the crazy game that we play, Mark. All right, let's move on to the next fight here. The co-main event. We got 2 fights left here, and then we'll get Mark back to his pheasant hunting. We got 2 great strikers here between Rafael Fiziev and Brad Riddell. In terms of odds, we're looking at -120 for Fiziev and +100 for Brad Riddell. So a slight favorite for the Fiziev side. Both guys are pretty familiar with each other, former training partners over there at Tiger Muay Thai, and then it seems like Tiger Muay Thai has slowly started to fall apart. Fiziev now finds his home down there in Florida at Sanford MMA. Brad Riddell obviously training over there with City Kickboxing with Eugene Behrman and the rest of the guys over there. It was a difficult fight for me to break down pre-tape, but once I ran the tape, I started to really like the Brad Riddell side here. Fiziev, great striker, great combinations, really loves his body kicks, but it seems like he starts off hot and then starts to taper off, and fighters are able to take over there, just as Bobby Green was able to do in his last fight back in August, where Brad Riddell is almost the opposite. It's like he digs himself into a hole and then he fights out of it in the second and third round. I'm not sure why I thought that Dober was one of your guys. He's a Team Elevation guy, if I'm not mistaken, right? But it shows in that fight, right? He got hurt early. He uses a wrestling to get him out of a bad position, and I think that's a great cue for him, right? Like that shows us that he's making improvements, going from a kickboxer to a full mixed martial artist, using his wrestling to get back to his feet, or using it defensively, using it to get out of bad positions. And I think if the longer that this fight goes, I think that Riddell, with his patience and waiting for his openings to throw the kitchen sink, which is pretty much what he does in all of his strikes, I think he'll be able to ding up Rafael Fiziev in the second and third rounds here. I think a third round finish for Riddell is very live in this spot. He's managed to put guys on wobbly legs in the third round consistently. We've seen Fiziev really start to slow down and guys really start to catch up to him. Luckily, he's been able to survive. I just don't think he's been fighting a heavy striker like Brad Riddell, and I think that Riddell will be able to find that. The interesting thing here, I'm not sure if you've ever had this before, Mark. Have you ever had a set of guys who have trained together that ended up going on and fighting each other? And did you see any type of disparity in terms of how it went in the training room compared to how it went in the actual cage?
Well, for example, I trained Chris Camozzi, who ended up fighting Dustin Jacoby. Chris Camozzi won, and then Dustin Jacoby came, and now obviously he's been training with us forever. And so I've seen it that way, and then I've seen it kind of the flip way, where you see them fight, and I've seen that a lot actually, where we fought guys and then they come train with us, and sometimes you're like, holy shit, how did we beat that guy? And sometimes you're like, I understand how we beat that guy. So it just kind of depends. But about this fight, one of the things I would say is Fiziev is so crazy talented and fast and powerful on his feet that he's a scary dude to be in front of. And the thing that I think that we have to remember here is Riddell is super hittable. He's super hittable. And so Fiziev does kind of taper off a little, but he doesn't taper off a lot. So it's not like he's losing a ton of speed and power in the third round. He's not flat-footed either. That's the other thing, is he might be slightly less than he was in the first, but in the first, he's a freaking powerhouse. And so now Riddell is got one hell of a chin. He's got a ton of experience. He obviously comes from some striking background, of course. He comes from a great gym. They both do. And I think the other thing, Fiziev has shown that he can grapple too. He's not terrible on there. He's not just a striker. And so obviously Riddell can grapple, and he's gritty and grimy, and he can if he can withstand that power and speed of Fiziev, I think I got to be honest with you. I think I'm taking Rafael in this fight, and I think I'm not big on calling what I think it's going to be, but I think he kicks so well from low mid to high, or high mid to low, or however you want to call it. I call it climbing the ladder, like he's climbing the ladder well. He kicks so well, I could see him putting him out with a head kick from throwing low stuff and body stuff and feinting, and then getting Riddell's guard to move. And once he starts moving that guard, you get hit with one of those kicks, I think he potentially could put him out. And so I do think, though, Rafael needs to implement some type of takedown. It doesn't need to be an actual takedown, though. So
like feints, change levels.
It needs to even be grabbing you and missing the actual return to the mat, but putting in your head that I'm not going to just stand in front of you and strike only, so that he can use the feint of the takedown to just make his striking that much better. And so I think if he can implement some type of takedown, that he's in that fight and he can win that fight. I'm going with Rafael in that fight.
First one I feel like we've legitimately disagreed on, but I'm very much looking forward to seeing how that one plays out. And I'm sure you are as well with your Muay Thai background. I'm sure you're very much looking forward to seeing how that fight actually plays out, especially if they look to just strike with each other for 15 minutes. All right, main event time. Shout out to the 130 live viewers that we currently have. Make sure you guys hit that like, hit that subscribe, and then obviously follow my guy Marc Montoya on Instagram. The link to his IG is in the description below. Let's show my man some love. All right, Mark, we're here at the main event. Rob Font against Joe say Aldo, in terms of odds, we got -145 for Rob Font, +125 to return on Jose Aldo. So slight underdog money here on Jose Aldo. And I know this is called the Ultimate Weigh-In Show. We haven't talked about the weigh-ins once, but personally, I think it's because everybody looked great on the scale. I had no issues, except, Jose Aldo normally looks like a skeleton every time he jumps onto that scale, but it seems like he has that weight cut finally mastered. He made championship weight once when he fought Pierre Dion, but I don't know how many more times he has that cut left in him, considering the type of career that he's had. And that cut down to 145 pounds used to be brutal as well. So the fact that he's really rejuvenated his career and his lifestyle to make that 135 pounds shows you his commitment to this game. We got a career best performance out of him last time around, where he was able to land 114 strikes on Pedro Munoz. And I kind of did some data collecting, and I put together all the numbers that Jose Aldo was able to put up in his 25-minute fights that actually go a full 25 minutes since his WEC days, and he averages 77 strikes per 25-minute fights. And then he was able to put up 114 in 15 minutes against Pedro Munoz. I think that was more so with the style of Pedro Munoz, right? He's kind of just plodding, moves forward, really looks to take your head off, which leaves him to get countered and hit up, just as Jose Aldo was able to do in that fight very well. Rob Font, on the other hand, coming off his first ever headlining spot against Cody Garbrandt, where he's able to pick him apart over 25 minutes and come home with a decision victory. But we saw a weird game plan from Cody Garbrandt there, trying to take the fight to the ground, really not fight to his strengths, but again, he's trying to evolve as a fighter, especially since the downturn his career has kind of taken since the TJ Dillashaw fights. I am scared as hell to put money against Jose Aldo. I've bet him in the past before. I wanted a ton of money on him. I was surprised that he was an underdog to Jeremy Stevens a couple years ago. Managed to cash on that as well. And I feel like that could potentially happen this weekend as well, where people are putting too much stock into the fact that this is a 25-minute fight, and we may not even see it go 25 minutes. This guy's body work is nasty. It seems like his boxing has been getting better over the last couple of years as well. But man, I really think that this could be not a passing of the torch type of moment, but I really think that Rob Font will start to come into his own. As long as he can survive early here, I feel like he should be able to pick up rounds 3, 4, and 5, where we've seen Jose Aldo start to slow down. I will say that with an asterisk, though, because when you're going up against Max Holloway and Pierre Yan, yeah, you're going to start to slow down to the pressure and pace that those guys are able to put on. Rob Font in his past couple fights, he's been able to progressively increase his output as rounds have gone on, which leads me to believe that he could potentially do that here against Jose Aldo. It just depends on when Jose Aldo starts to slow down, because if he doesn't, I could see him, obviously being the faster of the two, landing devastating combinations, great leg kicks, obviously, great body kicks. Super tough fight for me. I'm not touching this fight. I'm not putting my money anywhere near this fight. But in terms of a prediction, I'm putting a gun to my head. I'm reluctantly going with Rob Font. I think it's like 51% Rob Font, 49% Jose Aldo. But this is a true moment for us to see whether Rob Font is the goods and he's ready for that top 3, top 5, and then Jose Aldo, whether he still has that 35 years old, and if he can find his way to a title shot once again. I'm going Rob Font. Mark, the stage is yours. Who do you think wins this 135-pound main event tomorrow night?
So as we finish, I just want to thank you for having me on here, and thank the people that are tuning in. Those people, obviously, it's me on Instagram. So if you reach out and DM me or whatever, you're getting it actually from me. So reach out, say hi. I'd love to speak to you guys. About this fight, I would say Aldo's a legend, and he's created a legacy, and I think we all respect him for that. What an amazing career he's had up to this point. He's almost at 40 fights as a pro. I was just reading some fact, and it said that, Aldo was beating some of the best in the world back in the day while Font was still coming up delivering pizzas, right? And so
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of interesting when I was reading that. The thing about this is, Father Time's a bitch. As you progress, if your game is strictly on speed and timing, Father Time takes that away from you. And Aldo, for example, has gonna always have power. He's as you get older, you don't lose the power, but you do lose the speed and timing. He's still fast, don't get me wrong, but I'm just saying, like, I think sometimes we forget how freaking good Aldo was in his prime. That dude was crazy good. And killing the legs of these guys, how fast he would kick, working kicks from top to bottom. I mean, the guy, and he's in his prime, was unbelievable.
His takedown
He's
defense as well was amazing. Like nobody could get him down.
correct. I did an interview today earlier, and they were saying, people are comparing him a little bit to Randy Couture and to Glover Teixeira because of the age and the insurgence of his career, like those two that I just mentioned. The difference, though, there is that Couture and Teixeira have really good grappling games. They're really good top pressure guys. So they eliminate the speed and the power being their one superpower. They eliminate that, and they use their efficiency on the ground and their top control to then go on to win fights that way. And that's one of the reasons why I think they were able to have they were able to come back as in later in their careers and have these victories that we've seen them do in their 40s. So with Aldo, for example, because speed and timing are one of his superpowers, he doesn't have the same speed and timing. He's still fast. Don't get me wrong. That's not what I'm saying. He still has power. He's still going to give Font some troubles when they fight tomorrow. That's going to be an incredible fight to watch. I think us as fans win on that one because we get to watch it and watch these two warriors go at it. Font's the best jabber in MMA. I mean, besides Holloway, I think Font is one of the best jabbers that I've seen. Because here's the strategy. Font is so good at throwing a jab and getting you annoyed with the jab that it plays into beating Aldo, in my opinion, because Aldo is going to get annoyed with the jab and he's going to want to hit him hard back. Font is the best at making you miss and countering you hard off of your misses. And so I think that's where Font beats Aldo in that piece. And the speed and the timing issue that you have as you get older, I think Font picks him apart that way. And I call it a draw. Some people call it a pull. But when you throw a jab and draw off that, make him miss, and then hit him, I think you're going to see that all night. Now, Aldo is going to be a pain in the ass for 2 rounds. And he's probably going to chew up Font's legs a little bit from that. But let's not forget, Font can grapple too. And so a little bit of blend would go a long way for Font. I'm not saying spend 5 rounds on the ground, but I'm saying a little bit of blend will go a long way, and it'll even make that jab even nastier than it already is. And I just see him drawing out these big strikes from Aldo, and Aldo getting tired, and Font just picking him apart doing that. So my money's on Font.
I love it. I love it. I love the breakdown as well. That's what everybody was here for. Everybody wants to hear that technical breakdown from the coach's perspective. I'm taking Font. Marc's on Font as well. Last thing I want to ask you, and then I'll let you get out of here and get back to your life. I apologize again for going up against the clock here. What is your most confident play on the card? If you were to if somebody gave you $1,000 and said, Marc, you have one fight, odds no worse than -250, who's that fighter that you're putting that money on? I'll quickly start this off just to give you a second to look at it. I personally have a parlay of Alex Morono and Luis Smolka. I think those guys will be able to go in there and do work against Vince Morales and Mickey Gall. I think those are pretty safe-ish spots. I'm not calling them the safest of bets, but I think on the entire card, I really like those spots in those matchups. So that's the play that I'm going with. What do you like here?
I am gonna go with Santos.
Leonardo Santos over Clay Guida. I can't disagree with that either. I do like that spot myself as well. All right, Marc, on the back end here, anything you want to say to the viewers, and then I'll let you go.
Hey, I just want to thank you for having me on. Let me know when we can do this again. That was a lot of fun. Appreciate the time, and just want to thank your fans. You're doing a great job, man. Keep killing it. You've got a really good MMA brain. It's impressive to hear. Keep growing and expanding, doing what you're doing. And like I said, if you reach out to me on Instagram, I'd love to have some conversations there and kind of trade back and forth there. So thank you for your time and appreciate it, and keep rocking and rolling.
I love it. I appreciate you for your time, Mark. I know this is a family weekend for you as well, but I truly appreciate you coming on and doing this. Good luck on the first quarter of next year. You guys got a lot of big matchups coming up. Alexander Hernandez taking on Hanato Moicano. Obviously, Rogerio Bontorin against Brandon Royval. A couple other big ones in there too. I think Vince Pichel, if I'm not mistaken, is going up against name escapes me right now. Oh, Marco Madsen. Great matchup there as well that I'm very much looking forward to. So again, appreciate you coming on. Appreciate everybody joining us as well on the back end. Make sure you guys hit that like, hit that subscribe, and then obviously follow my guy Mark over there on IG as well, because we need to blow him up a little bit more. Let's get this guy's social media game popping off and share his hunting. I'm sure people would love to watch some hunting content if you want to put up a YouTube channel.
I'll put some up
like
this weekend. We're gonna
go.
do some pheasant hunting, go eat some pheasant after we shoot it, and my buddy's got a deer tag, so like I said, we ate some pheasant and elk for Thanksgiving. Those are two things that I harvested this year, and my family loved it, and it was amazing. So anyway, brother, I appreciate it, and it's great to talk to you, and have a great day.
Absolutely. All right. On behalf of myself and Mark, have a good night, and I will see you guys next week. We have UFC 269 coming at you guys. Make sure you guys check out that show, and I'm pretty sure I have a pretty big guest for that one as well. Good luck on your bets tomorrow. I'll actually be doing 2 appearances tomorrow. 1 p.m. Eastern for the Fight Day live chat, and then 5:30 p.m. Eastern. I'm going on with my guy Big Brady, DFS by the numbers, him and Uncle Weezy. I believe Narco Cop is going to be joining us as well. 5:30 p.m. Eastern. I'm going to be hopping on with those guys until the fight start, so make sure you guys check that out. Good luck on your bets tomorrow, and I'll see you guys tomorrow as well. War, Louis Smolka, and Alex Morono. I know I got some giggles over there. Some people don't trust Louis Smolka. I do. Let's see how it goes. See you guys tomorrow.